Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel and to another episode of Budget Tech. Recently, I reviewed Apple's AirPods Pro, perhaps the best wireless earbuds on the market, but also one of the most expensive. Not everyone wants to spend $250 just to listen to their music wire-free, so I've rounded up 8 of the top-selling true wireless earbuds, all under $50. Obviously, none of these earbuds is going to have all of the latest specs and features, but wireless technology has come a really long way, and even when it comes to audio quality, there are some pretty decent entries on this list. I should say that these aren't necessarily my top picks, rather just some of the best-selling earbuds you can buy, so this list will be as much a what not to buy guide as it is my recommendations. Let's take a look. So in no particular order, first up we have the MPOW M5 or T5 depending on your region. They come packaged with small and large ear tips, since the mediums are attached to all of these earbuds by default. They also have a fairly short micro USB charging cable, and unique to these earbuds, a small lanyard. These have easily one of the nicest charging cases on the list, opting for a leatherette finish rather than the cheap plastic we normally see. It feels really nice and is pretty lightweight, but probably a bit big to fit comfortably inside a pocket. It uses a 4 LED battery indicator system, which briefly appear when you place back the earbuds or whilst the case is charging. The case has a loop to attach the included lanyard and is charged by the older micro USB. It's pretty robust and durable, and definitely one of the stronger entries on this list. The earbuds themselves are very small and have a smooth and glossy plastic blend. The build quality here is fine, but as expected, doesn't scream premium quality. The single multifunction button has a nice LED lighting design though, which can indicate charging and battery status. The earbuds snap into the case securely with strong magnets, but they can still be removed quite easily. They turn on and off automatically with the charging case, so the strong magnets and easy earbud placement guarantees that this works every single time, which is a common problem with some other earbuds. The earbuds are very small, but their unusual shape meant that they weren't quite as discreet in my ears as I would have expected. Still, they did create a pretty good seal in my ear for good passive noise isolation, to block out the external noise. This kept them pretty secure in my ears, but I did feel some movement when running with these, so I wouldn't trust them not to fall out. The ear tips can feel quite tight in your ears, depending on the size you use of course, and although these were comfortable enough at first, my ears did fatigue after listening for a couple of hours. In terms of controls, there's a single multifunction button on each earbud. This button is very clicky, but does require a bit of force to press, which can be uncomfortable since you're pushing the earbud into your ear canal each time. You can stabilise the earbud with your fingers to ease the pressure, but the button click itself is still a bit loud, and there's also a beep to accompany every single command, which some may find a bit annoying. The control scheme itself is split across both earbuds, and it was good to see that all of the typical controls were included, since volume especially is often omitted from these types of earbuds. I also think it's easier to long press than to double click, and since you'll likely want to skip tracks more often than change volume, the control scheme was pretty well thought out in my view. By default, the earbuds will pair to each other, and you can just pair both to your phone at the same time, but these do use the master-slave configuration, meaning you can only use one of these earbuds on its own. You can actually repair the earbuds to change which side is the master earbud, but obviously using just one earbud will restrict you to the controls for that particular earbud. The repairing process can be a bit fiddly, and it's not always clear which is the master earbud, but this is still an option for you if needed. Moving on to some of the specs, these offer Bluetooth 5 and showed impressive connectivity in both the line of sight test and also when using these indoors with multiple obstacles between my phone and the earbuds. There was also no latency at all when watching videos on both iOS and Android. The battery life is rated at 5 hours, which they exceeded with my testing, and the case offers a total of 42 hours playback overall, which is very good for earbuds in this price range. These also have an IPX7 water resistance rating, which means that they can be fully submerged at a depth of up to 1 meter for 30 minutes. There are microphones on both earbuds for using these for phone calls, and I found the performance here to be okay, but not great. My voice was fairly quiet, and you can still hear some of the background noise during the call. They did a reasonable job of isolating my voice against the background noise though, so they should be usable in most situations. When it comes to audio quality, the earbuds showed their price a lot more. The bass is lacking, especially if you can't get a good seal with the ear tips, and is perhaps the weakest out of all the entries on this list. You can turn up the volume to hear more punchy, but certainly not deep bass, but the mids then become a bit too loud and even distorted. The detail and clarity is lacking here, as with all the entries on this list. but compared to most budget-priced earbuds, these aren't bad. Vocals aren't muffled and the sound isn't tinny, but the mids could do with some refinement and the highs with more detail. The M5s have a brighter sound profile than most of the entries on this list, but the highs aren't especially harsh. It's mainly just that the low-end frequencies could do with the boost, which you may be able to achieve with your phone's equalizer. The M5s are actually the only entry on the list to offer aptX support, and I must say that I found the audio to be noticeably better listening on an Android device as a result. The bass is still lacking a bit, but it's worth noting that the sound quality is improved listening with aptX. MPOW's M5s are available for $46 or £34. Next up, we have the FlyBuds from Tribit, which come nicely presented with spare ear tips and a short USB A to C cable. The charging case is again really nice, and has a similar leatherette finish that's a little bit softer than with the MPOW case. It has a clamshell design with left and right earbud battery indicators at the front, and the case is battery LED at the side next to the USB-C charging port, a rare but welcome addition to a budget pair of earbuds. This is quite small and light, and since it's a lot flatter, this will be easier to carry around in a pocket. The hinge locks gently into place when you open it, and overall this feels pretty sturdy and durable. It could well be my favourite charging case on the list. The earbuds are held in with magnets and are fairly easy to remove, but they didn't quite snap into place as securely as I would have liked. Sometimes the earbuds could take up to 10 seconds to disconnect from Bluetooth after closing the lid too, which was a bit disconcerting, but fortunately, I didn't run into problems with the earbuds remaining connected. The earbuds themselves are made from a rubberized plastic, which helps to prevent them from feeling cheap, and they have a more typical earbud shape that contours to your ear. There are no buttons here, but rather a large touch surface on each earbud with a small LED. The earbuds are a lot bigger and bulkier in your ears, but their shape allows the ear tips to sit very deep in your ear canal, whilst the rest of the earbud seals the outer part of your ear too. This has the effect of creating a very tight seal, and the resulting passive noise isolation was excellent. It's fairly easy to twist and lock the earbud into the correct position, but some may find how deep these sit in your ears a little uncomfortable. It's very tightly sealed, which can create that sort of cabin pressure sensation, but conversely, the immersion is very high. You can wear these more loosely if you choose, but this will seriously and negatively affect the audio quality. I personally found these quite comfortable, more so than the MPOW M5s, but my ears did start to fatigue approaching the 2-hour mark. These didn't fall out when I ran with them, but I did feel them move a little, and I had to make adjustments, which mid-run, I was running the risk of jamming them in too far due to their design. As for the controls, the touch surface is quite large and easy to locate, but the sensitivity was questionable. It often didn't correctly differentiate between taps or register them at all, but tapping firmly was quite loud and uncomfortable in my ears, as was tapping 3 times to skip the track. A single tap performs no function, so you can reach up and adjust the earbud without worrying about accidentally pausing your music, but sadly volume control is missing from here too. Now an important point to make is that this is the new control scheme that comes with a recent firmware upgrade, and therefore might not be the same for you straight out of the box, which leads me on to a unique feature with these earbuds. Whilst there's no dedicated companion app for any of these earbuds, Tribit does require you to install an app during an extremely lengthy and complicated update procedure if you want the latest firmware. It's difficult to follow the instructions, or even know that you need to do this in the first place. You can find the details of this on Tribit's website, but leave a comment below if you have any trouble with this. The app you eventually need to download is confusing, is not called Tribit or FlyBuds, and crashed multiple times. It's a shame because on here, there are actually options for turning on pass-through, changing the touchpad sensitivity, an equalizer, all features you'd expect on a flagship pair of earbuds. Unfortunately, after barely getting the firmware update completed, most of these features didn't work, and you have to pair each earbud one at a time when making any changes. It essentially becomes too cumbersome to use, and I deleted it soon after updating the firmware, which I suggest you do too. It's really a bare-bones piece of software, and I think Tribit should invest some time and money to develop this into a consumer-friendly standard, although this might understandably push the price point above $50. Just to avoid confusion, all of this is unique to the FlyBuds. None of the other earbuds have any app, firmware updates, or any changes to the controls. They're good to go straight out of the box. Getting back to the earbuds though, these do pair to your phone with a master-slave configuration. Again, you can repair them to change which one is the master, but it's unclear which one this is, so you'll need to learn this, and the process can be quite fiddly. Moving on to the specs, these also have Bluetooth 5 and gave an almost identical performance to MPOW for the line of sight test, and there were no dropouts when using these indoors. The latency was ever so slightly more noticeable on both platforms, but it's still extremely low and I expect most people won't even notice. The battery life is rated to a higher 6 hours, but only managed to reach 4 at 50% volume, which is the largest gap between claimed and delivered battery life on this list. You also get 36 total hours with the charging case, which requires a 2-hour charge time. These have an IPX5 rating, which protects them against jets of water, but not full submersion below the surface. The microphone quality was somewhat poorer here, and I found that background noise such as passing traffic could sometimes muffle my voice entirely during phone calls. The call quality in most environments was passable, sometimes even quite good, but noisy environments may give you some difficulties. Now with the audio quality, we almost have the opposite sound profile to MPOW, with the FlyBuds offering a much warmer tone that favours the low end. The bass is more prominent here, especially with that better seal, but a frequency imbalance and muddy sound spoils the clarity here. I think bass heads might still like this style though, and the weighting towards the low end means that there are no harsh highs, so the tone can be quite relaxing overall. I would want to see a lot more detail and clarity here though, for the audio to become a major selling point, but for the price, this is more than adequate. Tribit FlyBuds are available for $49.99 or £43.99. Next up, we have the Tronsmart Spunky Pro, the most unfortunately named on the list, certainly here in the UK, and these come bundled with spare ear tips and a short USB-A to C cable. The charging case has a unique circular design, is made from a pretty standard cheap plastic, but has an interesting carbon fibre-like top surface. There's a button at the side which you press to pop open the lid, and then swivel it round to reveal the earbuds. It has a 4 LED light system for charging the earbuds or the case, is charged by USB Type-C, and is one of only 2 earbuds in this video that also supports wireless charging. The case is a bit big to fit comfortably in a pocket, and is lacking in premium materials, but is good enough for the price. The earbuds themselves are by far the smallest on this list, made from a cheap plastic, and have a similar pattern on the outer surface to the charging case. This surface has a small LED indicator and acts as a touchpad for your controls. The earbuds do snap into the case with magnets and are easy enough to remove, but it's not always easy to place these correctly first time, and I would like to have had much stronger magnets used here instead. I actually had a lot of issues with another pair I tested, where the earbuds would repeatedly turn themselves on or off by themselves inside the case. I've seen similar reports of this from other users too, and although the second pair I tested seemed to be better, there are definitely some issues with quality control here. Since the earbuds are so small, these are extremely discreet in your ears, but it wasn't always easy to get the right positioning, and these weren't especially comfortable for me. The seal I achieved was okay, but not as good as most of the other earbuds, and nor was the passive noise isolation as a result. I couldn't get one side to stay in my ears whilst running, even after experimenting with different ear tips, but others with different ear shapes may find these more comfortable and secure fitting. The touchpads were quite sensitive, so even light taps could trigger the command, and I could tap much more firmly without this feeling uncomfortable or needing to stabilise the earbud first. Just like the FlyBuds, not every command registered, and I often needed to repeat the gesture, but touch controls were the right choice here for earbuds of this size. The control scheme is split across both earbuds and does contain all of the controls you'd expect, including volume control. A single tap is used here though, and since the earbud is so small anyway, it's very hard to adjust the earbud without accidentally pausing your music. The earbuds pair to each other by default, and you can pair both of them together to your phone with the master-slave configuration. But like the others on the list so far, you can repair either earbud to become the master earbud if you want to change which earbud you can use on its own. In terms of specs, these also have Bluetooth 5, offered a shorter range of 276 feet in the line of sight test, but had full coverage in my home through multiple obstacles without any dropouts. There is a slight latency watching YouTube videos on iOS, but less so with Netflix, and on Android this was similar with YouTube, but Netflix was basically fine. The battery life is rated at 3.5 hours, and gave almost exactly this during testing, and the charging case provides an additional 4 charges. It's below average even for earbuds in this price range, but the USB-C and wireless charging support goes some way to mitigating this. Just like Tribit's FlyBuds, these have an IPX5 rating, which protects them against jets of water. The microphone quality was pretty poor during phone calls. I imagine that since the earbuds are so small, and the microphones are hidden by my ears and far away from my mouth, that this made it very hard for the caller to hear me. My voice was quite muffled even in quiet environments, but in loud environments, the background noise would often completely drown out my voice. None of the entries on this list are amazing, but these were the worst for phone calls. As for the audio quality, there's an emphasis placed on the mid-range frequencies, and the overall sound quality is a little muffled. The sound is much brighter than the FlyBuds, and more similar in style to MPOW, but with less clarity. You need to turn up the volume to really hear the bass, and the lows in general are lacking in depth, but at these volumes, the upper mids and highs become a little harsh. I think a better seal with the ear tips would help the audio seem richer and more immersive, so those who find that these fit really well may have a better experience with the audio quality. Tronsmart Spunky Pro are available for $35 or £32. The fourth entry are the TT-BH053 from Taotronics, which come packaged with spare ear tips and a very short micro USB cable. The simple oval-shaped charging case is made from a cheap plastic, has 4 LED indicators at the front, and a micro USB charging port at the rear. It doesn't have the best build quality, and the hinge does feel like it will snap with any more than light pressure, but this is expected for the price range. The earbuds are the only long stem design in this list, possibly taking inspiration from Soundcore's Liberty Air that I've reviewed before. Incidentally, these earbuds are also known as the SoundLiberty 53, so somebody has taken liberties, not only with the design, but the naming too. The case is lightweight and pocketable, but certainly approaching the borderline for becoming too large. The earbuds are the largest on the list with their long stems, are made from the same plastic as the charging case, and have an otherwise uninspiring but simple design. Each earbud has a touchpad with a small LED at the top of the stem, which because of the stem, isn't as easy to locate as some of the other touch-based earbuds. Their design makes them easy to place back in the case, and they do so with a satisfying magnetic click, but they're easy enough to remove again. The stem makes these the least discreet to wear in your ears, and although I found them quite comfortable even after a few hours, you might feel the stems against your face, so the experience isn't completely seamless. The earbuds are easy to place correctly, and the ear tips don't sit as deep into your ear canal, which is more comfortable too. But they consequently don't provide as good a seal, and only average passive noise isolation. The benefit of this is that they feel more airy though, and ear fatigue doesn't set in as soon, almost like the opposite of the Tribit FlyBuds. They also didn't fall out when I ran with them, but I did feel them moving, and I needed to keep making adjustments. As for the controls, sometimes the touchpad needed only the lightest of touches to trigger the command, but I'd say more often than not I needed to repeat or correct the touch gesture. Double taps often register as single, triple taps were almost a no-go, and in general, very precise touches were needed. All of the necessary controls are here, but strangely, it's the single tap that's used for volume control and not for play-pause, which I would prefer. The good news is that there's enough of the earbud to hold onto without accidentally touching the touchpad, so having a single tap isn't as much of a problem as the other earbuds. Since the earbuds aren't as intrusive, even tapping firmly isn't uncomfortable, which is great. I just wish the controls were more accurate and responsive. Now with these earbuds, the master earbud is the left by default, and this cannot be changed, so you can only listen with just one earbud on the left side. This also means that when using just one earbud, you can't skip tracks forward or turn the volume up, which is a bit strange. As for the specs, these have Bluetooth 5, gave a very good 488 feet in the line of sight test, and also had no dropouts when using them at home. There was a bit of latency with YouTube on iOS, but Netflix in using these on Android was basically fine. The battery life is rated for 5 hours, but these gave just under 4 at 50% volume, with the case providing a total of 40 hours. The earbuds also have an IPX7 water resistance rating, so can be fully submerged underwater. The microphone quality was pretty good overall, so the longer stems do seem to be helping here. You can still hear some wind and traffic sounds in the background, but they generally didn't overpower my voice during phone calls, like with some of the other earbuds. When it comes to audio quality, these offer a very flat, neutral, but well-balanced sound. No frequencies feel overpowered, but there's just enough bass to give these some body and not seem thin. This might be lacking a bit for some people though, especially if you can't get a good seal or are using these outdoors. Certainly using these indoors or in quiet environments, they sound a lot better. Obviously the high detail and separation of expensive earbuds is missing here, but I did enjoy the reasonably crisp and clear mid-range and overall balanced tone. Taotronics SoundLiberty 53 are available for $45 or £38. Crossing the halfway mark, we now have the Amour Air Duo from iWalk. These earbuds come bundled with spare ear tips, a very short micro USB cable, and are packaged up in a rather premium looking box. The pill-shaped charging case is made of a glossy and metallic looking plastic combination, with a single battery indicator at the front and a micro USB charging port at the rear. The choice of plastics helps to disguise the relatively cheap build quality, but the case is light and small enough to fit inside a pocket. The case's LED flashes to show the remaining battery life, and the earbuds LEDs actually shine through the lid as they charge, which is pretty cool. The earbuds are fairly small, light, and have a metallic silver and glossy plastic build. There's a single multi-function button on each earbud, with a small LED at the centre. They snap into the case easily with very strong magnets, which is good to see, but can still be removed fairly easily. The earbud shape is reminiscent of the MPOW M5s. In fact, these earbuds can fit in each other's charging cases, but the Air Duo are slightly more discreet in my ears. Comfort-wise, they're fairly similar too, which for me isn't particularly good, and I didn't find that this shape offered the best seal in my ears. It was tricky to get a comfortable and tight seal, so passive noise isolation was only average, and I wasn't personally able to run with these either. The control scheme here is actually identical on both earbuds, which does make things a bit simpler. Unfortunately, this means there's no volume control, and strangely, no way to skip tracks back. I would suggest not using these controls anyway though, since the button requires a fair amount of force to press, and the resulting click is very loud in your ear. Having the same controls on each earbud means when you're using just one earbud, you've still got the same controls, which is handy. But again, it's unclear at first which one is the master earbud, and then the repairing process to change this is a bit fiddly. When it comes to specs, we do have the latest Bluetooth 5 here, but the connectivity was significantly worse with these earbuds compared to the rest. The range in the line of sight test was the shortest by far, and the earbuds struggled to maintain a connection to my phone as I moved through my house and away from my phone. There were a fair few dropouts here, where most earbuds have no issues, so these are definitely the kind of earbuds that need a phone close by in a pocket. They fared much better with audio lag though, and there was no noticeable latency on YouTube or Netflix on both iOS and Android. The battery life is also the lowest rated of the 8, but did meet this with playback at 50% volume. The charging case can then charge up the earbuds an additional 2 times, with a charging time of 1.5 hours. Sadly, there's no water resistance to speak of at all, which is not only unusual, but ultimately quite disappointing. I've seen iWalk respond to a customer on Amazon who asked about this, and they claimed that the earbuds would actually be sweat-proof, but that they didn't get an IP rating approved. There's still no mention of this at all in the product description or in the user guide, so I would exercise caution. Using these for phone calls, my voice sounded clearer and louder than expected. Background noise and passing cars could still be heard, but my voice remained relatively clear, so overall they performed pretty well. Moving on to the audio quality now, I thought the sound presentation was similar to MPOW, but the bass was a bit more noticeable as long as these fit with a good seal. The mid-range and vocals are lacking in clarity, but they're still pronounced and not lost in the low-end frequencies. There's some roll-off in the higher frequencies to prevent any harsh sounds, but consequently the detail is lacking here too. The overall tone is slightly warm, fairly relaxed, and pretty well balanced. It's just missing the depth, clarity, and detail of more expensive earbuds. iWalk's Air Duo are available for $35 or £33. The 6th entry are the Dudios Zeus Air, which are packaged with spare ear tips, including extra small this time, and also a very short micro USB charging cable. These are actually just rebranded SoundPeats, a more commonly known brand that you might be more familiar with. The charging case is the most basic on the list, made from a relatively cheap plastic, which doesn't have a cover to protect the earbuds. There's a micro USB port at the rear with some charging LED indicators, and since the earbuds are exposed, you can see their charging status directly from the earbuds LEDs. The earbuds are made from a matte black plastic and have a multi-function button at the centre. The build quality here seems a bit higher than some of the glossy or cheaper fitting plastics we've seen before. The earbuds snap into the case easily with strong magnets, but it can be a bit tricky to remove them since you need to pull them outwards first. I found it easy to get a comfortable and secure fit fairly quickly, and the shape of the earbud creates a good seal but maintains a light and airy feeling. The ear tips fit securely for decent passive noise isolation, but don't sit too deep in your ear canal or create uncomfortable pressure. The rest of the earbud doesn't completely obstruct your ear, so I found these quite comfortable even after a few hours of listening. When I ran with these, they didn't fall out, but I could occasionally feel them moving, and I needed to make adjustments, so I'd probably not use them for this. The multi-function button is easy to find, but quite clicky, which can be loud in your ear. The shape of the earbud did allow me to press this firmly though, without jamming the ear tip into my ear canal. They also sit fairly discreetly in your ears without protruding too far. The control scheme is split across the earbuds with a familiar layout, but volume control is missing here. The earbuds pair together automatically, but still use the master-slave configuration. What's good is that you're told which earbud is paired as the master, which makes it much easier to use one on its own, and also when you're trying to repair them to change the master earbud. It's still a bit fiddly to do, but much easier now that you can clearly see the left and right earbuds. As for the specs, these have Bluetooth 5 and reached a distance of 309 feet in the line of sight test. The indoor coverage was pretty good, but I did notice a few dropouts when using these with multiple obstacles between the earbuds and my phone. There was no latency using these on Netflix or YouTube with both iOS and Android though. The battery life is rated at 3.5 hours, which they just about reached at 50% volume. The case holds 15 hours of charge in total and can be charged in just 1.5 hours. Now for water resistance, there is conflicting information on websites online and also with the information on the headphones packaging. It isn't made clear at all that there is any water resistance from any of the marketing online, but a seller response did specify sweatproofing, and this appears to be corroborated by the IPX4 stamp on the front of the box. There's no information in the user guide though, and the warranty specifically doesn't cover water damage, so I'd award these a tentative sweatproof rating, but do exercise caution. Using these for phone calls, I'd say the performance was average, if not slightly above. Background noise is amplified along with my voice, and louder sounds such as passing traffic could sometimes muffle my voice. I did notice that the caller actually sounded a lot louder and clearer though, despite maintaining the same volume level for all of the earbuds during testing. So overall, these were one of the better performers so far. The Zeus Air's audio quality is definitely one of the biggest strengths. The balance here is pretty good, similar to the Taotronics earbuds, but with much richer audio and perhaps a bit more emphasis on the mid-range. The bass adds good body, but the low end is much cleaner than, say, the Tribit FlyBuds. The mids offer good detail with slightly forward vocals to make them stand out. The high-end frequencies are more noticeable here too, but at very loud volumes this can start to become a little harsh. I found these had better clarity than the earbuds we've seen so far, and it seemed as though these earbuds belonged in the next category up in terms of sound quality. They're obviously far from audiophile quality, but certainly offer much better audio than most earbuds in this price range. The Dudios Zeus Air are available for just $23 or £17. The penultimate entry is perhaps the most well known, and that's the Soundcore Liberty Neo from Anker, the baby brother of the Liberty Air we've seen on the channel before. This is the upgraded version with the improved battery life and water resistance, but same low price tag. These are packaged in Anker's typical premium style, with a medium-length micro-USB charging cable, spare ear tips including extra small, and unique to these earbuds, spare wingtips too. The charging case is one of the more premium entries too, with a glossy metallic looking finish, a very sturdy hinge that locks securely open, and a more durable build quality than most of the others. The case uses a 3 LED battery indicator system and has a micro-USB port at the rear, which is strangely hidden behind a rubber seal, despite the fact that the case is not waterproof itself. I'm not sure that this was entirely necessary, but I guess it's just added protection just in case. The earbuds have an equally high build quality, with a higher grade plastic finish and a silicone band that wraps around the centre with your chosen wingtip. There's a multifunction button and small LED for each earbud to provide battery, charging and pairing status. They snap easily and securely into the case with strong magnets, but aren't a struggle to remove. These are one of the bigger earbuds on this list, so are definitely noticeable in your ears, but don't protrude too far. I personally found these very easy to lock into place in my ears, and I found the perfect eartip and wingtip combination to do so. For me, this created a very tight and secure fit, and the resulting passive noise isolation was fantastic. I did find these quite comfortable, but due to the tight seal with the eartips, I found that my ears fatigued after a few hours of listening, but I could take off the wingtips for more casual and relaxed listening. Using the wingtips though, these were the most secure earbuds I've ever tested, and it was impossible for them to move, let alone fall out whilst running. The silicone band around the middle provided much more grip, but the wingtip locked the earbud securely in place for guaranteed stability. They were even more secure than my Jabra Elite Sport or PowerBeats Pro, and even a bit more comfortable, so these would be my go-to pair for exercising. The only thing I would say is that the earbud shape does completely seal the ear, so they're not especially airy, don't allow much passive noise in, and don't have a transparency feature. Whilst I personally prefer this whilst running, from a safety standpoint, this might be a deal breaker for some people who want to run with these. Obviously the seal, the isolation and the comfort is heavily dependent on your ear shape and the ear tips and wingtips you use, so not everyone will have the same good experience. This of course applies to all of the earbuds in this list too, so make sure to try all of the ear tip combinations just in case. The multifunction button is indented to make it easy to find, but it still requires a firm press and provides a loud click when doing so. As we've seen before, you might need to stabilise the earbud whilst pressing it to avoid pushing the ear tip into your ear canal. The control scheme is fairly intuitive, split across both earbuds, and just like the MPOW M5s, uses a long press for skipping tracks. Volume control is missing here though. The earbuds also use a master-slave configuration, but only the right side can be the master, so you can listen with just one earbud, but this has to be the right side. Moving on to specs now, the Liberty Neos have Bluetooth 5, and surprisingly, gave the best range in the line of sight test from any earbuds, earphones or headphones I've ever tested, even exceeding AirPods connected to an iPhone. As expected, there were no dropouts when using these indoors in obstructed environments, but there was a slight latency with YouTube videos on iOS. Netflix was fine though, as was using these with Android devices. The improved battery life is rated at 5 hours, which they exceeded at 50% volume. The charging time is an hour and a half, and the case holds a total of 20 hours battery life. When you first turn on the earbuds, you'll also get a voice prompt giving you the remaining battery, and these are the only earbuds with this feature. The new water resistance is improved to IPX7, so the earbuds can be fully submerged underwater. As for the microphone quality, my voice sounded pretty loud and clear. Like the others, loud background noise can still be heard, and my voice sounded quieter and a bit muffled when cars passed in the background. But aside from the Taotronics earbuds, these might be the best of all of the earbuds for phone calls. The Neo's audio quality, I think, belongs in that sort of higher category along with the Zeus Air. There's more detail and a higher clarity than most of the entries on this list, and if it's bass you're after, these are easily the best of the lot. The bass is deep and boomy but still controlled. The Liberty Neos have the bass that I found lacking in the Liberty Airs, but perhaps not quite as good clarity or detail in the mid-range. I think there is a slightly bass-heavy signature overall, and the mids, and vocals especially, don't shine quite as much as I would have liked. I think the forward vocals of the Zeus Air, for example, would have worked well here. As always though, a tight seal and secure fitting ear tips is essential to the audio performance, especially if you want to hear that bass. Soundcore's Liberty Neo are available for $34 or £40. The final entry on this list are the EarFun free true wireless earbuds, which come bundled with spare ear tips and a USB A to C cable. The charging case is on the larger side, although smaller than the MPOW case, and is made from a relatively cheap plastic. You could still fit this inside a pocket, but it's not as discreet as most of the other cases. The hinge is reasonably sturdy, and the build quality is slightly better than some of the ones we've already seen, but it's not exactly premium quality. The case uses 4 LEDs at the front for battery information, is charged by USB-C at the rear, and is also the only other case to support wireless charging alongside Tronsmart. So overall, this is one of the better charging cases. The earbuds are made from the same plastic, and have a shape design similar to that of Tribit FlyBuds. The multi-function buttons on either earbud are made from a softer, more matte textured plastic, and contain a single LED for battery and pairing status. Although they don't feel bulky, these are on the larger side and are one of the least discreet to wear in your ears. It's quite easy to find a secure fit though with their contoured shape, and you can just gently rotate them to lock them in place. The ear tips create a tight seal and offer very good passive noise isolation, but don't push as far into my ear canal as the FlyBuds, which is nice. I found these pretty comfortable to wear for the first few hours, but they're not as airy and light as some of the other earbuds. When running, these actually stayed in my ears the whole time, but I could feel them moving slightly and I had to keep making adjustments, so I wouldn't normally use them for this. For the controls, the button was surprisingly soft to press, and needed far less force and was less loud and clicky than the other button-style earbuds. I did still need to support the earbud though, to avoid pushing the ear tip into my ear canal. The control scheme itself was a little strange, since double and triple clicks are used for track skipping on the left earbud, but not the right, and a long press wasn't used at all. There's no volume control here either, so perhaps that could have occupied the long press instead. These do have a master earbud too, which is locked to the right side only, which with this control scheme means you can't skip tracks without talking to your phone's voice assistant. Moving on to the specs, these have Bluetooth 5 and reached a decent 400 feet in the line of sight test. They also didn't suffer any dropouts in obstructed environments indoors, but there is a slight delay when watching YouTube videos on iOS, but Netflix and Android use was absolutely fine. The battery life is rated at up to 6 hours, but I managed just over 5 at 50% volume, with the case then providing an additional 4 charges. These are also IPX7 rated, so can be submerged fully underwater. The microphone quality with these was pretty good, and they mitigated the background sounds reasonably well. Some of the louder sounds like passing cars could be heard, and did make my voice sound quieter, but it didn't muffle it as much as some of the other earbuds. In most situations, I would expect these earbuds to be pretty good for phone calls. As for audio quality, these surprised me with just how good they sounded. It's my first experience with EarFun, but I think these have the best audio quality of all of the entries on this list. They take the best of the Soundcore Liberty Neo and the Dudios Zeus Air and combine them for a really well balanced, rich and smooth audio experience. The bass is deep and powerful, but doesn't boom like the Liberty Neos, but at the same time, the vocals and mid-range are more prominent and have better clarity, even if not quite as forward as the Zeus Air. For earbuds in this price range, the sound quality is fantastic, and I think these could give some of the expensive models a run for their money. The EarFun Free are available for $49.99 or £34.49. There's a common theme with these earbuds when it comes to build quality, and of course the price, that separates them from the flagship models. With the audio quality, some are lacking in bass or balance, but all are lacking in clarity and detail that you can find in the higher priced earbuds. There are a few standout performers though, and you'll want to look to the latter 3 in this list for the best options in audio. Even under $50 though, there were some pretty high-end features on offer, and certainly many options offering better value for money than some of the expensive flagship earbuds. There's a lot of information to process from this video, so this chart here summarizes the individual earbud reviews and breaks down how I'd rank each of the earbuds against each other in each different category, with number 1 being first place and number 8 being last place, so please feel free to pause the video here. Overall, it was great to see all of the earbuds embracing Bluetooth 5, and some had USB-C charging and even wireless charging. The gap between the quality of the flagship and budget models is decreasing, even if the pricing isn't. So if you're looking for a bargain, there are plenty of great budget options for true wireless earbuds. But let me know in the comments section which ones are your favourite. If you enjoyed this video, then please give it a like to show your support, and don't forget to subscribe to see more videos like this one. You can also follow the channel on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at InsideTech Ltd for all of the latest news and some extra content too. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.